Hello, welcome to the Brains and Weans podcast. I am your host, Jen Rollich. This is so weird because despite the fact that I have been a guest on, I think maybe like 20, 25 podcasts by now, since I started my business, and I've been running the Built for Coaches podcast, which was previously the Built for Life podcast with my business partner, Mark Strathern, for years now. I think the first podcast episode I ever recorded with him was like 2022. So I have been podcasting in inverted commas for such a long time, but this is the first time I've done something on my own. I've done solo episodes like on the old Built for Life podcast, on Built for Coaches, but like it's just me like in my house fucking hunched over my desk and nobody can see me. Whereas this is going to like go on Spotify. It's just me, my podcast. It's going to be on YouTube. So this feels like a wee like step into the growth zone. I don't talk about comfort zones because I've never met a single human being in my life that's comfortable in the comfort zone, so I don't think it exists. I like to call it the growth zone. So welcome. This is episode 1. In this episode, I'm just going to tell you a wee bit about myself because I'm conscious that there's probably quite a lot of people, like if you're listening to this, you probably know me already. Therefore, you probably know my story. So there are a lot of people who I reckon like will already know a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about. However, in case you're someone who doesn't know my story, someone who's somehow managed to come across me for who knows where, and you don't know things about me, then I probably should start this by telling you who I am. Couple of disclaimers. I swear a lot, right? Anybody who is Glaswegian or for certain areas of Scotland, is very, very normal for us to swear. Like my mum says cunt, right? It's really not a big deal to us. It's just a part of our dialect. Like cunt just means person in Glasgow. It doesn't mean like, it's not an offensive term, right? I probably wouldn't say it, like, to certain people, but I say it all the time. I swear quite a lot. If swearing is not your thing, this is not the podcast for you, and I will not be offended if you choose to take your ears elsewhere, okay? The second thing is I have quite a strong accent, according to some people. I don't think it is. I dip in and out of Scots and English. I will try my very best not to code switch and speak, as people would call it, properly in inverted commas, but that's a whole other topic for another day. Scots is a legitimate language, so don't fucking tell me not to speak on language. However, I recognise it can be difficult to understand, so I'll do my best, and if I do say any Scots words, then I will give you a translation, because actually there is a Scots word in the title of this podcast, because Weans means child. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that if I do drop in some Scots words and phrases here and there, I will give you a translation. And actually on that and on the podcast title and what the podcast is actually going to be about in general, I really have wanted to do this for such a long time, because as much as I've spoke loads on podcasts and I've got my own podcast with Mark, that's very much a medium where I talk directly to coaches. And obviously, being a coach is a huge part of my identity, but it's only one part of my identity. It's not the whole thing. And there are so many things that I want to say, opinions I want to share, but also like a lot of knowledge and information that I share with people every single day that I would just like to share wider, because there are so many things that I've learned in my journey as a professional, but also from my own personal development journey, that has been so impactful in me building the life that I've got now from where I first started. And my life, through my life, I've been handed some really difficult and challenging circumstances that I didn't quite know that I would survive. And I really fundamentally believed that I was the kind of person who was always going to struggle or always going to experience a difficult life. So if you are someone who is maybe going through a difficult time, or you're going through the process of change and it's hard and it's difficult and you don't understand why you're struggling with it, I want to be able to give you some information, some tools, some things that you can apply to your day-to-day life that just help you to build the kind of life that you want to live. I truly, honestly believe that everybody with the right circumstances is capable of going after the life that they want. And I say the right circumstances because we are all dealt very different hands. Nobody starts from the same starting line. So I'm not saying everybody can chase their dreams, right? I'm not saying it from that perspective, but what I am saying is that if you feel that your life is in a position that is not the kind of life that you want to live, then there are things that you can do to improve it and make it better within reason. So I'm going to give you a wee bit of an insight into like some neuroscientific based and some psychology based tools and theories that you can apply to your day-to-day to help you understand yourself better and actually create the kind of change that you want to create for yourself. But I'm going to apply real life context to these. So I'm going to tell you how I've used them and how they've applied in the context of my life to help you understand what that looks like in real time, because I think it's all very well and good hearing theories, but it can be really, really difficult to attach those to a real human experience. So that's the first part. The Weans part, which means kids, obviously I recently became a mum to my little girl Rosa, and as much as I don't want mum to be the sole component of my identity has shifted, and it's a huge part of who I am and a part of who I am that I'm very, very proud of. And I think that I see this quite a lot in the fitness space, where I see people be like, oh, my page isn't going to just become like a mum page. I don't just want to be a coach that works with mums. And whilst I understand it not wanting to become your sole identity, because I don't want it to be my sole identity, I love Rosa, but I love all the other parts of me too. I don't want it to become my sole identity. However, I do think that sometimes, especially in the fitness space, people really look down on like female coaches, especially coaches who coach mums. And I frankly think it's just a fucking misogynistic viewpoint. So in line of saying fuck the patriarchy, I am going to talk proudly about being a mum, but it's going to be in the context of how I parent, and in the context of being a mum who's a business owner too, which is a whole different ballgame, and is actually what the next episode will be all about. So a wee bit about me. If you already know all of this, you've heard all of this before, then I'm sorry, this is probably going to be pretty boring. And if you don't know it, or you know bits and you don't know it all, or you want to know all of the gory details, then stay tuned, because this one is for you. So I'm Jen Rollich, obviously, as you will probably know by now. So where do I begin? Early childhood. I would say that growing up, I had a really happy childhood. I don't have anything that I can like pinpoint in when I grew up that happened to me that was particularly difficult. Like, I have loving parents, I have a loving family, I have a great support circle, I always have. And I realise that a lot of people say this, right, because the thing is that there's a thing in the brain called the insular cortex, and a lot of the time people think that they are the only person who's like them. So we can think that we know that we're really different, right? And it's actually just because we know ourselves deep down. So you know every version of yourself that has ever been. Nobody knows every single version of you and how those all culminate into you. So it's very common for people to say that they recognise that they're different from everybody else. And I think that for me, I can recognise that. I can recognise that it's both. I can recognise that I probably just think that I'm different, or that I was different because I think that I'm different. Everybody thinks that. However, there were key things for me growing up that I recognised were different about me. I struggled to fit in. And I think a lot of the time, like, I really struggled with friendships. I really struggled with socialising. I really struggled with building relationships. So like when I was really young, I went to a childminder, and I point blank refused to go to nursery. My mum says that her and the childminder took me to nursery and tried to like transition me in, and I point blank refused. I would not walk in the door. And I think the childminder tried to take me to toddler group, and I just would not fucking go or not engage with the other children. I was just not interested. And actually, and now as an adult, what's really interesting is that my current therapist and several other mental health professionals have indicated that they suspect that I might be autistic or on the autistic spectrum. I've not actually really spoke much about this. I think I've maybe mentioned it on the Built for Coaches podcast. It's something that people in my own life will know, but it's not something that I speak about really publicly. One, because I don't have a formal diagnosis. It's $2,000. And honestly, like at this point in my life, I have so many other things that I would rather spend $2,000 on. And the other thing is that I just don't really feel like it's something that I need right now. If it were something that I felt that I needed to understand myself better further down the line, then I would. The other caveat to this is that autism is a really wide spectrum, and there's the only podcast in the world that I listen to is the Blind Boy podcast. I would say shout out Blind Boy. He certainly does not need a shout out for me. However, huge fan. And Blind Boy is autistic, but he says that he struggles with talking too much about being autistic because the autistic spectrum is so vast that there are some people with autism who are fully non-verbal and depend completely on, carers to live day to day. And he feels a sense of discomfort giving himself the same label or connecting with the same identity as those people who find life profoundly more difficult and need a lot more help and support. And that is exactly how I feel about it, because I've managed to build a business, I have a family, I have a stable life, I've managed to navigate mental illness and build my life to a point of mental well-being where I'm no longer dependent on intervention-based services and medication like I was before. So it just feels a bit of a strange label to attach to myself when I know that there are people who are autistic who experience life in a much more difficult and challenging way than I do. So that's the only reason that I don't speak about it. However, it does really explain quite a lot of the challenges that I've faced across my life. And it also explains to me quite a lot about how my brain works and how I operate and why I've found the things difficult that I have found difficult over the years. So anyway, a lot of the experiences that I found difficult in childhood, I think were down to that and socialisation and relationships. It was not that I was trying to make friends and nobody wanted to be my friend. I was just not arsed about having pals, right? I was just always really happy on my own. I am a huge fan of The Sims and The Sims 2. So, I would just play The Sims all the time, and I was really, really happy doing that. I had my wee sister. My wee sister's 5 years younger than me. And, we would spend a lot of time together. I was never really that arsed about having pals, and that really was a long and short of it. I think once I got older and I was a teenager and I started to find, my people, I started to find people that accepted me for who I was, that I had things in common with, then, having friendships became a lot more interesting. But relationships has always been something that I have found difficult. I find forming relationships difficult because I don't really know how to make a pal. This is going to sound fucking mental unless you're someone who thinks the way that I do. But I don't know how natural friendships really form. I have friendships that have naturally formed, but I don't know when somebody wants to be my pal. I don't know. I'm not really good at the maintenance of friendships. I'm very I'm quite an out of sight, out of mind person. I don't really feel a sense of missing people. That can then make it difficult to maintain relationships because it doesn't always cross my mind to check in on people unless I have an active prompt that says you need to check in on that person. And this doesn't mean that I don't care for the people in my life. I do, really, truly and dearly, and I value the relationships that I have so much. And I would consider myself a very compassionate person, and I think that comes across in the relationships that I have with people. It's more for me and how I view them. Over the years have been told in therapy, yeah, that's not the normal the normal view of the normal person. Story of my fucking life. So yeah, as I got older, forming relationships became a lot easier, and I think a huge part of the reason why that became easier was because of my love and interest in music. So I have spoken about this quite a lot before, but music was my whole entire life. It was my whole identity. Again, on reflection, it was probably a hyperfixation. It was probably a special interest. And still is, honestly, to this day. It's a huge part of my life and it always has been. And I think I found a lot of solace in it because it was just something that I could do on my own and get lost in. And I think, I wouldn't say really that I have natural music talent. I do have some natural talent, but I think a lot of my talent with music came from obsession and passion and love for it, that I just trained myself into having a talent. And I think as well, when I got into music, that's kind of the route that I made friends through. That's how I found a lot of my people and my friends that I connected to because they obviously shared the same interests, and it was a really nice group of people in school who were involved with the music department. The school that I went to was really known for music. The music department always done really well. We would compete in fucking, I don't even know what you would call them, band shit. I don't know. I was in the school band and orchestras and stuff like that, and we would go and compete with other schools. I can't remember. Super County Super Show, was that what it was called? But yeah, so my school was known for doing shit like that and winning things, right? It was lots of talented musicians because the music department was really, really good. So we would go like school trips and stuff away with the music department, which was great. And that, I think, really helped me to form like meaningful friendships later on in life. And I think music being such a huge component of my identity helped me to figure out myself as well, because I just didn't really... I've always really struggled with, like, what is it that I like? What do I want to do? Like, I said this to Paul recently. I sometimes struggle to understand how people can just do something that they want, like, and desire, as opposed to something that needs done. Because my brain very much works in the way that if that doesn't need done, like, why would I do it? Like, if that doesn't produce something, why would I waste time on it? Which is a fucking insane way to think. Unless it's something I can get lost in, like The Sims, like music, right? So I think that's why I've found so much passion with those things, because they've allowed me to just explore a side of myself that I would normally struggle to access. So I play flute and piano, concert flute, not like the Orange Walk type of flute, because I'm on the other side. I'm on the other side of Glasgow. You will not ever catch me in an Orange Walk. I wouldn't be allowed in. I'm Catholic, so they would they would fucking reject me anyway. So I play flute and piano. I do sing. I don't think I'm the best singer. I think I can hold a tune. I wouldn't say that I'm like a very good singer. I'm all right. So I started playing flute when I was 10, and then I started playing piano when I was 12. And that kind of just became the focus of my whole entire life. I went to flute lessons, I went to piano lessons privately, and the ones that I did in school. I was in orchestras, bands. Shout out to the Lanarkshire Orchestral Society, anybody who used to be in that. I was in that. I was also in, what was the one with RSAMD, Youth Works. I used to do that. I was obviously in all the school ones. Wherever there was fucking music to be played, I was there. And I also did music theory in my spare time. Music theory is the most boring bit of music, and I loved it because it's all like process patterns, like looking where scales fit inside music and stuff like that. It's class. I loved music theory. So I did that for years and years and years and years, and then it came time for UCAS applications to go to uni. Obviously, my dream was I was going to RSAMD. I was going to study to be a music teacher. Applied, got in, and never went. And all my fucking... I think I got a conditional, so I still had... I can't remember now, but I still had conditions to meet. I didn't get, like, straight in. And I chose not to go. I got an unconditional to study psychology at Strathclyde Uni. I don't know why I applied for it. I didn't study psychology at school. It wasn't an option at my school. I didn't really know much about psychology other than my ma, which is Scots for mum. My ma used to read Psychology's magazine, probably to try and figure out how to fucking communicate with my dad, who is also suspected autistic. Imagine that. And that was pretty much my sole exposure to psychology. So I don't know why I applied. Call it fate. I honestly, I couldn't tell you my thinking process behind it. So I applied to psychology at Strathy, got an unconditional, and this was in 5th year. That was like the first round. So I accepted this would have been after I started. How does the application process work? I already had my first set of hires. So I'd obviously sat my hires, got the results, and then you do the application. So basically during 6th year, I found out that I got an unconditional into uni, so I just fucking gave up because I was like, why would I bother trying? I stayed at school really just for the banter. I was deputy head girl, so there was a lot of like opportunities to just go to things and dick about. And I didn't want to leave school early. And I also, sometimes my jaw locks. When I'm talking, it's so painful. I need to get Botox and your masseters to relax it. Anyway, sorry, that's fucking really annoying. I did say I was going to keep it real. Doesn't it get fucking realer than lockjaw? Where was I? Applying to psychology, stayed at school. I didn't want to leave. I don't know why I didn't want to leave, because in reflection, all my pals left in 5th year. I think a couple of my pals stayed on for 6th year. But like, I don't really know why I stayed. I wasn't sitting exams. It was a fucking waste of time. But anyway, I stayed anyway. And then I went to uni. But around that time so I got the unconditional, and I actually got an unconditional offer to KCL, King's College London, to study psychology as well. And I really, really wanted to go. But my mum and dad couldn't afford basically for me to go and live in London. Like, I didn't have a job at this point. I think I used to work as a waitress in the Spice in the village. So I think I worked there at this point, or maybe the Parkville in Blantyre. I used to be a waitress there as well. So I think I worked in Spice when I was 16. So I probably worked in Spice around this time. So I was making like 30 quid a week, right? That was not sending me to London. There was no way my mum and dad could have afforded to put me up in like student accommodation and all that and give me money until I got a job. The moving costs and all that just would not have been possible. And I qualified for the loan, but I didn't qualify for like the bursary because my mum and dad both worked. My mum's a social worker, my dad had his own business. So we were in that weird middle where we didn't qualify for a bursary support, but they didn't have enough money that they couldn't afford it in their lifestyle to have been able to send me. So I didn't go. But I also around about that time met my ex, who I was in an abusive relationship with, and a huge part of my decision making not to go. I could have took the loan and I could have really made it work, and it was such a dream, and a huge part of the reason why I didn't go was because I just started getting out with him. And see when I see if Rosa came to me and says, "Mum, I got into KCL to study psychology, but I'm not going to go because I want to stay at home with my boyfriend." I don't know how the fuck my parents bit their tongue, because I genuinely would erupt. And I think any parents listening to this will get that. Like, you want the best for your children. And I just think, do you know what? I was a young girl. I was 16 years old. Like, I was doing the very best that I could, and I just didn't fucking know any better. But I now want to go back to that Jen and fucking punch her in the face and then give her a cuddle. Because we show our past self-compassion, not hatred, but she was a fucking idiot. Anyway, God love her. So that was a huge part of the reason why I didn't go. I wanted to stay at home with my boyfriend. And I could go to Strathy and stay at home because I'm from Blantyre originally, Blantyre if you're a local. So I could drive to uni in like 20 minutes. And like by this point, I worked in Morrison's. By the time I went to uni, I worked in Morrison's part-time. And my shifts were always straight after uni. So I had a car, so I would drive. I had a wee burgundy Ford car, I loved that car. So I would drive straight from uni to work. And I feel like when I went to uni, I really missed out on that traditional uni experience, but a lot of that was because I was in an abusive relationship. So he controlled pretty much every aspect of my life. I'm not going to talk extensively on this episode about that, because it probably needs its own episode. And I think for me to be able to tell the full story and do it justice, but also to talk about, if I'm going to talk about that, I want to be able to talk to people who experience it and direct them towards help and support, but also talk through like the psychological mind games that an abuser will play on you. And I want to talk about that in depth and detail. So I probably won't go into major detail on this episode, but it is a big chapter in my life and it is something that I will speak about. But that obviously controlled a huge part of my life. And I think that as I was going through uni, like things just got worse over time. That's the only way I think to really describe an abusive relationship, is like I experienced love bombing in those early stages. I had never had a proper boyfriend before. I went out with a couple of boys in school who, by the way, I doubt very much you're ever listening to this, were two really, really lovely guys. I think they're both married now and probably have kids, but they were such lovely people. And I feel so sad for me that I'm like, you had such lovely early relationships, like just typical, like your boyfriend when you're fucking 16, 17 and you think that he's showing love and it's the one and all that. But they were both lovely, lovely boys. And I feel so sad for me that I then went on to meet somebody who treated me so horrendously. However, I think when I look back now, I reflect through the lens of the woman that I am now, and it very much made me into the person that I am today. So it should never have happened to me, but it did happen to me, and it's absolutely moulded who I am now in the life that I live. But if by any chance you are listening to this, then thanks for being so sound. So that obviously controlled a huge component of my life, especially through uni. I scraped through uni with the skin of my teeth. I'm going to blow my own trumpet. I blow my own trumpet all the time. I'm really smart. And I got into uni to study that course because I'm clever. Not through chance, it was a lot of hard work, but I'm clever. I always have been. And I think when I started going to uni, like, it obviously required a level of commitment that you're not like, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not like aware of in school, right? You think that sitting your hires is the fucking hardest thing in the world until you go to uni. And it's a whole different ballgame. There's nobody there supporting you and carrying you along. You either do it or you don't. They don't give a fuck, right? So like a lot of that and having to be self-directed whilst also working part-time. There was a point in uni I had 3 part-time jobs, right? I worked in Morrison's part-time. So I think I worked in Morrison's 20 hours a week, maybe, or 16 hours a week. I taught piano on a Thursday night, and I worked in a Chinese on a Friday night. So there was a point in time, because I needed money, so there was a point in time that I had 3 fucking jobs and I was at uni full time and I was in a fucking abusive relationship, and I wonder why I ended up having the relationship with food that I did. Again, I will touch on my relationship with food, but that's a whole other episode. I can't give you away all the fucking content in the first episode. I need to keep you some things, for you to be hooked in with. So I think that time I was really trying so hard to apply myself, but I found it so difficult. And it was like challenging on a whole other level that I hadn't experienced before. But I think trying to be present in that physically and psychologically was so hard. And when I started out, so I applied to do psychology, but obviously in first year you do 3 subjects, then in second year 2 subjects, then in third year you specialise in either one or like a combined. So in first year I was studying psychology, Spanish, and I think sociology. Did I do sociology from first year? I think I did, because I loved modern studies at school, and sociology is probably the most like similar thing. And obviously psychology, sociology are all the science of people. So shock horror, I've ended up in a job where it's focused on the science of people. But Spanish, when you go to uni, is so fucking hard because you only speak in Spanish. The tutors are Spanish. So you only speak in Spanish the entire time. And I think in first year, I was fine. I'd been on the Spanish exchange trip, I think in 5th year. Did I go in 6th? I don't think there was a trip in 6th year. So that we went to Spain and we lived with a Spanish family, and that obviously accelerated my Spanish like majorly, because I had I was only speaking English to my pals. Like, you were speaking Spanish with your host family all the time. So my Spanish was really, really strong. But obviously, as things started to become more challenging with me and him, I wasn't keeping up with coursework. I wasn't going to lectures. The timings as well were so fucking annoying. Like, I would have a lecture at 10 a.m. and then a seminar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, I'm not just fucking hanging about town for 5 hours, or like, what's the point in going home, coming back again? I was a skint student. I did not have the petrol money for that. So I think I just really struggled with the whole process. I got a degree with the skin of my teeth, and I didn't do honours, and it really made my life a lot more difficult when it then came to applying for graduate jobs, because they all wanted honours degrees. So there's been somebody upstairs looking out for me and helping me to carve the fucking career that I've got now. Because even when it came time to doing like postgrad qualifications, like a lot of them, like my experience got me in, but a lot of them were like, why do you not have an honours degree? And I didn't have an honours degree because I had to leave uni. I couldn't do another year of uni. I resat second year. I'd been at uni for 4 years, and my abuser was basically saying to me, that's enough now. You're not continuing your education. You're going to get a job and you're going to move in with me. I need you to help me with bills. And he wanted me in his fucking sights. When I was at uni, me being at uni gave me opportunity. Me being anywhere away from him gave me opportunity and lacked his control. He didn't want me to succeed. He wanted me to fail so that he could have more control over me. So I really scraped by my degree with the skin of my teeth. I had a professor who I would love to meet again one day. Her name was Patricia McCafferty. She such a lovely, lovely woman, and she made it her life's mission to make sure that I got a degree. I don't think Trisha, I can't remember if I told Trisha the reality of my situation, but she knew there was shit wrong with me. Obviously, by this point, my mental health is destroyed. I am on an aggressive cocktail of medication by this point. I was on 375 milligram of venlafaxine a day, which is the maximum dose, and 150 milligrams of quetiapine, which is an antipsychotic. Venlafaxine is an antidepressant. That's a shitload of medication for a 19-year-old girl to be on, right? What age was I when I graduated? I went to uni at 17, so I'd have been, 21? So that's an aggressive fucking cocktail of medication, but Trisha knew that there was something going on with me, and she made it her life's fucking mission. She gave me her mobile number and she was like, you are sitting these exams. If for any reason you can't get into uni, you phone me and I'll come and pick you up. She gave me extensions. She sat with me and worked through coursework, helped me to construct essays. This is the thing. See, when I had the time and the focus, I could smash it out and I was fine. But I think like my brain was just fucking mush because I was being abused so badly. And my mental health was so horrendous that like I just had nothing left to give. So I managed to get a degree by the skin of my teeth. And thank God, because that then did open doors for me that would have been closed. I wish I could go back and tell that young version of me who was really struggling after first year. So I failed second year and had to resit it. And I wish I could go back and tell that version of me, like, you can leave and come back. Like, you can take a break. My parents were very much pushing me. Like, you have to get a degree. Like, my parents both went back to uni in later life, but they never went to uni, like, straight out of school. So I think they were very pushing me to be like, you need to get a degree because that's what gives you opportunities. And they were right, but I need to get a degree right now. I think they were worried that if I didn't, I would be stuck and I wouldn't be able to go on and do what I wanted to do. But it's so funny that now in my 30s, I know so many people, the majority of people I know who are really successful and have got great jobs or thriving businesses didn't fucking go to uni. So like it's something that feels so important then. And I think now as a parent, my parents were doing their best, but I think now as a parent, if Rosa was really struggling and she was like, I hate this and it's destroying my mental health, I would be like, well, fucking leave. Like, your hires run out after 5 years anyway, and then you can go back as a mature student. So, like, do that if you want to do it. My sister did that. My sister went back to uni. Once her kids were a wee bit older, she dropped out when she was younger, went back. She got a first-class honours in criminology. She has an amazing job now as a gender-based violence coordinator. Absolutely loves her job, really, really passionate about it. So, like, there's so many people I know who have either not gone at all or have gone back later in life and been really successful. I don't know why nobody told me that was an option. It just never felt like one. So anyway, got a degree with the skin of my teeth, and then I worked in the John Lewis call centre part-time. And then once I graduated, I went full-time and I moved into the flat with my abuser. And obviously by that point, once I was living with him full-time, like, he had complete and utter control over everything in my life, what I wore. He used to control how often I showered, the people that I saw, the food that I ate or didn't eat, where I went, like how I spent my time, the music that I listened to, the TV that I watched. I didn't watch people. People don't understand the nuance of how much somebody can strip your entire identity from you. That I didn't listen to the music that I liked for probably about a year. I didn't watch the TV programmes that I enjoy or the films that I enjoy for years. Like, because your whole life becoming a version of yourself that doesn't piss that person off. So you just have to mould yourself entirely to them and their interests, the food that they like. Like, I couldn't make food that I liked because I had to make food for him. So it had to be made in the way that he liked. He was a fucking child and didn't like vegetables. So, like, I had to make so many meals without fucking onions in them. Onions add flavour to everything. But I couldn't make it with onions because he wouldn't eat it. I like roast potatoes with a fucking roast in it, and he only liked mash, so we only had to have mash. And it's those simple things that seem almost trivial at the time that are the abuser's goal in stripping your autonomy from you. So now if I want roast, I have fucking roast. Whenever I want, I make a great roast tatty as well. As an aside from this, you might find it jarring that I'm laughing talking about this. This is not deflection-based laughing. This is ownership laughing. I can look back and laugh at these things now because I have healed completely from that experience. And I love who I am and the life that I live now. And I have healed from my trauma. So please don't think that this is deflection-based laughing. This is just me looking back and saying, fuck you, to him and every other abuser, just in case you pick up on that. So I lived with him in that flat. The abuse escalated really, really rapidly. And I can remember the day that I left like it was yesterday. It's so vivid in my mind. Anybody who knows me knows that Flowers in the Window is a really important song for me. It's my freedom song. It's the song that I listened to in the car when I left. And it was on the playlist that was playing when my daughter was born. And I also have a lyric from it framed in her bedroom, which is Let's Watch the Flowers Grow. So it's really, really important to me. And I put on that, it's actually not on that album, I put on the Man Who album by Travis. My pal phoned me and said, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm leaving. And I said, I've got from the beginning to the end of this album to pack as much shit as I possibly can and get the fuck out of this flat. It was not planned. It was not something that it had been. I knew I was unhappy and I knew that I was unsafe. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, there was something that happened in my subconscious that my nervous system kicked in, right? My amygdala took over and said, you need to get the fuck out of here. And so I did. I packed as much shit as I possibly could. There was so much stuff that I left behind that I regret, sentimental things, but I got out alive. In case you didn't know, a lot of people ask women why they don't leave. I will talk about this again in a separate episode. A woman tries to leave an abusive relationship on average 7 times, and it's on the 7th time that she is most likely to be killed or seriously harmed by an abuser. That's why women don't leave, because they try and they get sucked back in every fucking time. Thankfully, this time I managed to escape, and I did try and leave him all the time. We split up constantly. So I left, I got in the car, I put on Flowers in the Window, and I have never felt a sense of elation like I did driving away from that flat. I drove home to my mum and dad's. I cried the whole way there, but like exhilarating, joyous, happy tears. And I was like, can I move back in? And they were like, yeah, obviously you can. And I moved back in with my mum and dad. And I remember my pal saying to me, like, we were really expecting you to be like in the shit. And we were like, fuck, we're really going to have to be there for her and support her through this. And she was like, you just thrived. It was like being fucking reborn. It was like starting life again. Because I was with him from the age of 16 to 22. So that's a huge chunk of my formative years that when people are just finding and moulding their identity, I was being stripped of mine. And it was actually at 22 that I met Paul. I actually met Paul's going to fucking... Paul probably will listen to this and he knows exactly what I'm about to say and he'll be like, for fuck's sake, Jen. But I actually met Paul when I was 19 in the Archies because Paul gave me my first recce. Back in the day, I was a raver. That's Mosher sign. That's not a raver sign. I don't even know if there is a raver sign. But we were ravers back in the day. So I actually met Paul when I was 19 and then we were talking to each other on Twitter. This is when Twitter was like a big thing. I used to always be on, see those Scottish Twitter, like BuzzFeed pages. I used to always be on those. I was a big deal on Twitter. Not really. I think I was maybe on it like twice. The odd thing that went viral. I wish I could go viral fucking now with like my actual business content. That doesn't go viral, but my pattern on Twitter back in the day, it really did. So we started talking to each other on Twitter. And he slid into my DMs and I met him and we were both in the tavern, which is like Paul's local, in Motherwell. And I was there with my pal and he came up and spoke to me. And then I said to my pal, because she knew him like better than I did, I'd only met him that once. And I said to my pal, has Paul got a girlfriend? And he was with his pal, who was not his girlfriend, she was just his pal. And she was like, oh, he does, that's her over there. And it was his girlfriend. So I just stopped talking to him because I was like, right, well, why are you fucking DMing me if you get a bird, you weirdo? And then it transpired that he didn't have a bird. So we started talking back and forth on Twitter. He asked me out. I say to my pals, listen, he's a really nice guy, but he's not my type. I'm not interested. He's too nice, which is the war cry of a woman who has only known narcissistic love. And I said, he's too nice. Like, I'm just going to take him on a pity date and then get rid of him. And here we are, 10 years later, with a marriage, a house and a baby. So your lesson there is fucking shoot your shot and take the guy in your DMs on a pity date because if you're like me, you might fucking marry him. And that was over 10 years ago now. We've been together for the last 10 years. We got married in 2021 and Rosa was born in September 2025. I'll cry if I talk too much about Paul. So I'll actually, you know what I'll do? I'll bring Paul on the podcast because I feel like if I cried talking about Paul, it would probably be a lot nicer that he was in the room, and it would probably be better to cope with talking about it, because at least while I'm crying, Paul can talk. You don't just need to sit and listen to me cry. And throughout all of that time, I have gone on a huge journey of healing and recovery and personal development and discovering myself. After I left uni, I got a graduate job eventually in the NHS, and I worked my way up into a leadership consultant post. I left that job in 2022 to set up my business full time, and I have been here ever since. I'm an executive coach and executive leadership coach and coach supervisor, and I specialise in neuroscience and behaviour change. I absolutely love my job. I work now with Mark. We are co-founders of Built for Coaches, and we support coaches to scale and grow their business and actually keep more of the money that they make, instead of just the traditional bullshit business mentor, make money, but then that's all that matters. We look at the whole person, the whole coach, the whole business. I absolutely love what I do, and I feel so incredibly fortunate for the life that I have got. And it's taken a lot of building, it's taken a lot of grit, it's taken a lot of lessons. So really my intention for this podcast as a whole is to share that with you and share my experiences and the highs and the lows, but like I said before, the tangibles that you can actually then apply to yourself, not just in a way of like, oh, that's nice, good for you, Jen, but actually doing things in a way that you can understand how you apply these things to yourself, because like I said, I truly believe that everybody is capable of building the life that they want. And I hope to be a very small part in showing you how. So thank you for tuning in to episode 1. I will see you in the next one.